I know that a lot of us are still feeling a bit embarrassed and we're feeling this sense of apathy after only getting embarrassed a few days ago against Arsenal. And now tomorrow, on a Saturday at 8 p.m, we're playing away from home against Aston Villa, who are chasing securing a Champions League spot for the first time since 1982. Realistically, how much can we expect this team to bounce back? We've been posing this question on this young team throughout the season, but yet again, we prepare for another game with even more bad news, with more injuries and more issues. And listen, that explains why we can understand the frustrations of the season, right? So many things are working against us, but equally at the same time, when you're watching us play in real time and you're seeing the same old type of mistakes that we aren't showing much improvement on. For example, stuff like so much space is left between our midfield, defense and the attack. We still look disjointed. There is no real improvement in terms of any strong ideas or patterns of play or philosophies. We're extremely porous and extremely exposed when it comes to defending anything out wide. We're regularly getting beaten 2v1. It's one of the worst things tactically about us throughout the season. And it's no surprise why Arsenal found it so easy to play against us. And there's other details too. The fact that this team are finding it impossible to even just communicate effectively, to communicate their positions where they need to be. They're not even putting in the details you want to see, like tracking runners, being in position when they have to. And the season's nearly coming to its final point right now. It's coming to its end. And outside of the fact that maybe we can now score goals, to even score those goals, we must be extremely open. We must play extremely naively. And we're literally playing to create opportunities. That's it. That's why we look like how we do. And as I keep saying, what do we take from this season into next? That is the main issue that I'm seeing. And obviously Aston Villa will be a tough test tomorrow. I think under Unai Emery, since he came in and took control from Steven Gerrard, they had that half season where they had to adjust to his ideas, and in this season they've been on fire. They're one of the, most consistent teams, one of the most dangerous teams transitioning, one of the most dangerous teams on the counter-attack. And, you're thinking that's maybe something we may be showing in our game throughout this season. But Aston Villa played a great game against us at home. We bounced back and played one of our best games of the season, beating them away from home in the FA Cup, Villa Park, obviously. But now we can't rely upon that energy. We can't rely upon even most of the players that were available against Aston Villa tomorrow, because most of these guys are out injured yet again. I know that Pochettino has a lot of respect for Unai Emery, and for good reason, because he's been able to build and grow a team. They have principles and ways of playing, core set ideas. He likes to create a lot of opportunities in central areas. He has pacey, transitional players who can run in behind, that can stretch the play. They know when to be compact. They know when to keep the ball. They show all those details and facets that you'd like to think that we could show a lot more of this season, right? So when it comes to my expectations for tomorrow, I'm kind of beyond expectations now. I'm just looking to see what happens at this point in time. I'm a fan. I'm investing my time into watching us, so I'm always going to hope that we win. I'm not one of those guys that wants to see defeats so I can feel like I'm being validated. I don't care about that stuff. But when it comes to expectations, I've had so many throughout the season, and 9 times out of 10 they get met with failure. So honestly, we see how the team approaches things tomorrow to keep things real. So my friends, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll be going through things, but before we get into anything, today's video is brought to you by Parimatch UK. How would you guys like the chance to win a £50 free bet? Well, this season Parimatch UK have launched their new completely free-to-play football prediction game called Hat-Trick Hunt, which means that every single week you will get the opportunity to predict 3 score lines from the Premier League with 3 rewards for each correct prediction that you get. So if you can get all 3 correct, you'll be rewarded with a £50 free bet. This is how it works. So my friends, as you guys have seen on screen beside me, these are my score predictions for this week. As you guys have seen, I'm going for Liverpool to beat West Ham away from home. I think they probably have enough in them to get the result. For our chances against Aston Villa, I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I do think that Villa very threatening up front, but equally we are very porous defensively. We aren't a collective unit, and I think that Villa will take advantage of that. But equally, there could be some opportunities to exploit their high lines. And obviously for my final prediction, I've gone for Arsenal to get the result against Spurs. I think after battering us this week, they will have confidence now and think, listen, we aren't here to repeat those same mistakes that we made during the end of last season. So my friends, they're my predictions. Do you guys agree with me? And if you'd like to get involved yourselves, of course, click on the link below. You have to be 18 plus or over to play, and full terms and conditions apply. So thank you to Parimatch for sponsoring today's video and getting back into the preview. Now we move on to team news is becoming a bit depressing. I'll be honest with you. We have some positive news in the sense that Nkunku, Cole, Reece James, Ugojukwu, Sanchez, they're all back doing partial team training. When I was at Cobham, at the start of last month, I was seeing Reece James, of course, doing his run-ups, doing his warm-ups, training a little bit on the ball. So it was giving me some encouraging signs that he should be back quite soon. So hopefully he just comes back and he's ready. And I hope he looks a different player post-surgery. Time will tell. But outside of that, we have more injury news. Now, obviously, the big one being Enzo Fernandez now has undertaken his hernia surgery. So right now, he just has to recuperate and recover. And we won't see him back until next season. And I think that's the best course of action. Chukwuemeka is out injured yet again, and it seems, as Pochettino said, it's a reoccurring pain that he's feeling from his knee after getting that contact injury against West Ham at the start of the season. Knee injuries are the worst, and it's a shame for Khans. It's been a stop-start season, and it's a shame. The kid's got great potential. He's looked good, but it also explains why Pochettino has not been rushing him back to play. I think sometimes we can be a bit harsh on details that we don't have answers to. Raheem Sterling is feeling a muscular pain in his back. He's out for the game. And obviously, Gusto, Benjo have knee ligament injuries. And of course, the same story for everyone else. So I think we can understand why things would be difficult tactically for Pochettino to maybe build upon consistent core ideas. At the start of the season, he had Nkunku and Khans in mind. When two of your main guys are out the team, you're going back to the drawing boards. Thank God we signed Cole Palmer when we did, but I guess we haven't necessarily seen what Pochettino has been hoping to really do throughout the season. And this is what happens when you're constantly having to find a team, find a selection, and work on ideas with a very limited squad that is constantly getting new injuries literally every single week at this point. I'd like to say that most of the injuries that we've seen have come from the usual suspects. Most players have got reoccurring injuries, and a lot of those injuries have come from contact injuries that's been suffered by a lot of these players. It's not like we're getting reports that, players are breaking down in training. That would provide a lot of different context. I know that maybe there's some ideas around Pochettino's training methods and ideas. I know the Gaston test keeps getting mentioned, but I think that's a pre-season thing only. There is no time to do something that physically intensive during stages of seasons like this. But who knows if there's also something behind the scenes with the training. We just don't know. So my friends, that's team news out the way. And now let's move on to discussing the key talking points in the press conference. And I have to say that it felt like there was a lack of energy from Pochettino, not as much enthusiasm, some contradictory statements, which I can kind of understand. But to start with the first question, obviously the big one being, is Cole Palmer at least going to return tomorrow? And the answer is yes. He has been training well. He will be in contention for the game tomorrow. But throughout this week, we've got a lot of insight behind the importance of Cole Palmer. The first one being that Pochettino said before the Arsenal game that we aren't Cole Palmer FC. Go and prove yourself. And then obviously we pick up a 5-0 loss away from home. After that game too, Pochettino stressed the importance of having a Cole Palmer between all lines of play, which also makes a lot of sense. He combines with the fullbacks. He links the midfield. He links the attack as well too. There's a reason why he's been by far our best player this season. And we feel the loss when he's not there. And you're going to feel that loss even more if you can't even rely upon a Khans or Nkunku, who would be those type of similar players that could at least replicate what Palmer's doing. So that makes a bit of sense. But outside of that, there was a lot of questions asked around the character, moods, and motivation levels. And I'll be discussing some of these points, right? Because it felt like Poch was a bit defensive at times. Of course, he mentioned in terms of when he was asked about our lack of character, he was like, in the first half we showed that we were willing to compete. Second half we conceded early, and then maybe we showed that lack of capacity to challenge, which obviously shows that we lacked character. You know what I mean? You could see that in that game because players were hiding away from the ball. I'm looking at Mudryk. I'm looking at a few other players as well too, not announcing themselves in that game. Poch mentioned things like, you know, obviously feeling that defeat against Man City after playing a great game, getting knocked out. Is that still affecting the team a bit? Are fatigue levels affecting the team as well too? And he tried to find the comparison between Liverpool's recent lack of form after playing so many games in quick succession. So on one hand, I can kind of understand that context a little bit, but I guess it doesn't take away from the fact that we do lack some character at times, and I guess that's exasperated even more when you can't rely upon like your captain or vice captain for large parts of this season. But to continue on, there was talks around the moods currently at the football club, and you know, Pochettino revealed that he hasn't been in constant contact with the owners, saying that the last time he spoke to them was 2 months ago. And I think that shouldn't surprise us because the owners hired our sporting directors to run the football club. There should not be a direct line with Pochettino and, you know, Clear Lake owners because it's not how the hierarchy works anymore. When asked about the motivation levels currently and his performance, you know, Poch, you know what, even though a part of me is like, you know, you're just deflecting the blame now, but then I think to myself, well, actually, you know, you have been, you know, shielding these players from, you know, through large parts of the season. You know, I guess the responsibility should be shared equally. It's not just only Pochettino, it's also the players. I mean, can Poch control if a player finishes his chance or not? Can Poch control whether someone falls asleep defending a set piece or doesn't track the runner or doesn't communicate on the field? You know, we always think that, football is easy. If the manager says do this, the players are robots. They're perfect and they instantly just follow every instruction down to a T and never make a mistake again. It don't work like that. It's like expecting like a school teacher to take someone from set 5 or set 3 and then get them ready to start mastering their exams when it comes to doing GCSEs, whatever. I mean, I'm not giving the best example, but I hope you guys get the sentiment I'm trying to say. I feel like it's kind of the similar things that Pochettino is facing working with the squad, right? So I can understand why he'd feel like he can't fully take the blame. I think the blame, as I've said throughout the season, is shared equally between the players, the manager, and the sporting directors as well too. But to end things, you know, Poch also wanted to highlight the circumstances right now. Obviously, it's a hurt team. It's a team that is physically feeling the demands right now. It's a team that is constantly, you know, getting hit with new injuries every single week. All he can do right now is push the team because they are playing for us, which means that there's a level of motivation that is just already there. And outside of all the circumstances, you must compete. And I guess that'll be the lesson I'd like to think that this squad takes forward from this season into next. So that's the press conference key points out the way. You know what's about to come up right now? We discussed predicted lineup against Aston Villa. And to be honest with you, I'm not expecting anything crazy tomorrow. Here's my lineup. Of course, Nico up front because he's our only striker. I think Madueke and Mudryk will play. I wouldn't have started Mudryk based on how disappointing he was against Arsenal, but Sterling is out and we don't have many alternatives, and I don't see Pochettino giving an opportunity to Washington or an academy player to take part in that game. And I'm expecting Cole Palmer at least to be playing alongside him. So I'm going to hope for at least a small positive from seeing this attack in full because they played so well against Everton, and it'll be like the second time you see all of these guys in attack again. So let's hope for better things from Mudryk. I'm starting to feel a bit disappointed with the performances he's putting out there because he's hiding. He's not affecting anything. Terrible when it comes to keeping and retaining possession. Constant turnovers. It's hard to build when you have one player that's just a turnover magnet in your team. But you know, Madueke, it's a chance for him now to try and push on a little bit more as well too. At least he brings some consistency with his 1v1 threat, and I think Nico Jackson after that miss against Arsenal too, and the misses we're seeing recently, getting back on the score sheet is something he needs to do because at least end this season with 15 goals. And again, Cole Palmer, our best player. I mean, there's nothing I have to say about this guy. I'm going to watch and enjoy his performance, because I know if there's one constant this season, is that Cole Palmer will deliver and will perform. So that's the attacking four. I think, of course, Caicedo, Conor Gallagher being like the ball-winning midfield players. They'll have to play a big game against Aston Villa's midfield. I think maybe McGinn might play there, but obviously you're expecting Luiz and Kamara to be in that midfield. It's been some great battles against them this season. So can Conor and Caicedo step up again? Time will tell. And in defence, I think Silva, Jalaba go back. I wasn't really annoyed when Poch didn't start them against Arsenal, because realistically, especially with like a guy like Jalaba who's only just come back, Poch can't be forced in this situation where, you know, he's stressing players, they're playing too many games consecutively, then they get injured again. Us fans, we can't be too impatient. On one hand, we're like, why are managers rushing players back? But on the other hand, it's like, why aren't you using this player right now when he's on the bench? You can't win. And obviously managers will never listen to us for reasons like that. But I think it's quite clear that that Jalaba Silva defense right now looks the best balanced, the best equipped. They talk a lot. And is it any surprise that our only clean sheet in like, what, 2-3 months came from both these guys playing together? Now, I left back Cucurella, and honestly, I just don't rate this guy. I don't think he's good enough at all. And I still can't understand how Ian Maatsen was not given any opportunity, because even if you feel like he might be on Cucurella's level defensively, at least in the final third, this guy can absolutely cook. And right back, you'd imagine it's going to be Disasi. I mean, I wouldn't mind if Gilchrist played. I wasn't really angry with his performance against Arsenal. I mean, there's this defence that never really played together, but I'd imagine Disasi will be there, of course, to give us something from defending set pieces. So my friends, that is the preview out of the way. Share your thoughts and opinions. And on that note, I'm the EFC. This is Blue Lions TV. Leave your predictions, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cool.